that. I'm starting. There you go. Okay, we're going to have a fun night tonight. And we're talking about Genesis 48, verse 9. Let me open up what is happening here. These are the blessings, or the approaching of the sons of Yosef to be blessed. Yosef himself as well, and all the rest of the children of Israel to be blessed by Yaakov. So verse 9, I'll read it in English, then I'll read it in Hebrew. So I think I should really read verse 8 as well. And Israel, that's Yaakov, saw Yosef's sons, and he said, "Who are these?" In Hebrew, V'yar Yisrael es b'nei Yosef. He saw the children of the sons of Yosef. V'yomer, and he said, Mi Eila. Who are these? V'yomer Yosef, and Yosef said to his father, El Aviv, Benayim, they're my sons, Asher noton li Elokim bazeh, which Hashem has given me with this. We're going to explain what does with this mean. V'yomar, and Yaakov responded by saying, Kachem no Elai, bring them close to me. V'avar chem, and I will bless them. Okay, so we're going to discuss this first. Mitzvah Hashem will get a little bit further than this. So the Kli Yakar begins by saying, Nokot bozeh. Oh, you need a copy, son. Nokot, it's mentioning, it, right? The word used is bazeh, in this. So we explain, in this means what? In Egypt? Lefisha she'elo, since he asked him earlier, right, the verse number 8 before, Mi Eila. What Yaakov was wondering was, who are these she'enan ruyim levracha? Who are these children that are not fitting for a blessing? Now the question really is dumbfounding, because earlier on Rashi mentions that it was Ephraim who learned Torah with Yaakov, his grandfather. So he must have known who he was. And yet he turns around and says, who are these who are not fit for a bracha? He's about to give a bracha and he says, who are these? Very strange. So Kiamar, Yosef answered and says, what he was basically saying, Yaakov was asking, Mi bet and mi yatzuela. From whose womb, from whose stomach did these come from? Rotzolomar, meaning to say, Sheyomru, Eila Elokecha ala egel she'asa Yerava. See, there was a premonition that Yaakov felt they weren't fit for a bracha because he saw in the progeny that was yet to come, many generations later, Yeravam, well, at least from one of them. Also Achav, another evil king. So Yeravam was an evil king at the time of, right after Shlomo HaMelech, he split the kingdoms, the north and south. Towards the end of Solomon's reign. And you had Achav was an evil king, and Yehu was another evil king, and they came from Menashe and Ephraim. And Yaakov, through his Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, prophecy, was able to see or feel or sense that somehow or another through the progeny they weren't going to be all kosher. Ve'eshiv Yosef, and Yosef responded, Benayim, they are my children. Mikom mekom heim benai, even though they're my children, mitzadihem ruyim levracha. From that aspect, they're fit for this blessing. Umashi yetzu mehem achav v'yeravam, and from the fact that will come out from them in the future evil kings Achav and Yeravam, lefisha natan li Elokim osam bazeh. Even though we're in this horrible, decrepit, polluted place such as Egypt, God is the one who gave them to me here in Egypt, po b'Mitzrayim. Not only that, now this is another strange thing, because I understood that Osnat, who is the wife, who became the wife of Yosef, we attribute her as the daughter of Potiphar, the daughter of Mrs. Potiphar, Mr. Potiphar. Nevertheless, the tradition is that it was really Dinah's daughter. Dinah was raped by Shechem. She had a daughter, and this is the woman that Yosef married. But here it says, V'imam Mitzrit, meaning what Yosef is saying that it's true that their mother, both Menashe and Ephraim's mother, was an Egyptian woman, Bas Potiphar Kohen Aon, right? The daughter of Potiphar, who was a priest to idol worship, the Hainu Kohen LaAvodah Zarah, right? He was the priest to this idol. Al Ken Yetzu Mimena LaAsid Banim Ki'ilu Ovdei Avodah Zarah. That therefore will come out from them sometime in the future children, Ki'ilu, as if they also, right, worshipped idols. Ava Mitzidi, but Yosef's still talking, but for me, the aspect of who I am, Ruim Heim Livracha, they're fit to be blessed. Dim Lokain, if that's not true, think about it for a second. Lama Berach Hashem es Yitzchak. Yosef is basically having this conversation in his head, but as if he's talking to Yaakov, listen, your own father blessed you, and Yitzchak himself was blessed. Yitzchak had two sons, right? Esav and Yaakov. Hello, Yatsu Mimenu Esav and Yaakov. Didn't your own father have two children, one a good guy and one not so good? Mitzat Shahayas Rivka Bas Besuel Ha'arami. And the negative had come from the mother's side in this case, because the mother had come from a family that wasn't so holy and righteous. That God is not actually so concerned when giving the blessings of what's going to happen in the future. We'll see that he's only concerned about these two children right now. They're righteous, or whoever it is he's blessing is righteous at the moment. God is not so concerned about the progeny, the seed that will come out in the future that will be ruined. But rather, the blessing should come on account of the seed, the holy seed right now that's fitting to be blessed, or even in the future. So too, you should bless them. They deserve to be blessed by you. Sharei mitzidi, from my side, roim heim livracha. They're certainly fitting to be blessed. Ki ba'asher husham kulam zera beirach Hashem. Because they're going to be blessed as they are now. And they all are fitting to be blessed by Hashem. And this is a little bit of a poetic license by the Kli Yakar, because if we look on the verse in Genesis 21:17, which I'm going to try to open to, 21:17, it's talking about Yishmael, and Yishmael was also, he wasn't such a good guy for some of his life, but some of his kids are okay. Let's see, Genesis 21:17, just to the mimicking of the language there. 21:17. Here we go. I got it. So, 14. Abraham arose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, he gave them to Hagar, he placed them on her shoulder and the boy, and sent her off. And she went, and she strayed in the desert of Beersheba. 15. The water of the skin was finished. She cast off the boy beneath one of the trees. 16, she went and sat herself at a distance, some bow shots away, for she said, let me not see the death of the child. She sat at a distance, lifted her voice, and wept. Our verse here. And God heard the voice of the youth. He did tshuva, he repented, and an angel of God called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Okay, so we're talking about Kishmalukim el kol anar, the next verse. Fear not, for God has heeded the cry of the youth as he is there. Ba'asher husham. Just as he was at the moment, he was an innocent child. Well, he wasn't such a child, but at this point, because of the repentance that he went through, he had done tshuva and was judged favorably at that point. So that's the poetic license that the Kli Yakar uses. Okay, we continue with the Kli Yakar. V'yomer kachem na elai. So Yosef mentions, you should bring them close to me. Now the exact language of no we're going to also discuss. V'yomer kachem no. So here the translation is, I have to find it again, it's 48 verse 9. What happens when I turn the pages. 48 verse 9, here we go. Bring them to me if you please, and I will bless them. So the word no can mean now, just like it sounds like, no, or now, or please. So he says, the Kli Yakar says, Noked Loshon Elai. It says to me, you bring them to me. Laharot Sharoi Lilmod Mimeni, to teach us that they're fitting, these children are fitting to learn from me, or even perhaps anybody can learn from Yaakov. Sharei ba'avori nidbarech avi, right? On account of me, my father was blessed, right? Remember we talked about there were holy seeds and not so holy seeds. So Yaakov was one of the holy seeds. So Yitzhak was blessed. V'lo chasha kadosh baruch hu el Esav. God was not so concerned that not all the seed was kosher. Ratzol Amar, meaning to say, you hamit barchim kamoni. They should also be blessed just like I was blessed. Lefichach kachem elai. Therefore, bring them close to me. They should be brought close to me. B'milat na, the word na, nun aleph, hora al hazman hahove. It's teaching about the present term, the present moment. Hoveh means the present tense. Kamo hine no yadati. Now, if we just turn back to 12:11, chapter 12:11, the same phrase is used, no, and he just wants to use that as a proof text that it means now in the present. So where we have that, again, I said it's in 12 verse 11, Genesis 12:11. Okay. And it occurred, he was about to come to Egypt, and he said to his wife, Sarah, behold, now I have known that you are a woman of beautiful appearance. So in Hebrew, hine na yadati. Now I know. Now, the word now is used, and that makes sense, and that's understood. He didn't know, Abraham did not know how beautiful his wife was until that moment. Okay. So we have a proof text that no means now. Sheperusho lashon ata. Ata means now. That's the explanation of the word. Meaning to say, Hineni mevarchim kafi hazman shel akshav. I'm going to bless them according to the moment right now. She'akshav kulam tzadikim. Because right now, they are righteous. They're entirely righteous. V'lo echush el asid. I'm not so concerned about what's going to happen in the future. Yovarachem biyomahu lemor. This is a continuation of our verse. Again, memches and tes. Actually, I think it's there. And it's in our parsha here. Kfima shayu biyomahu, according to what they will be at this very day. V'loya choshesh el ha'atid mashiyavo mizaram, and he was not concerned about the future of what's going to happen in the future to their seeds, what comes out of their seed. Ki ein donin esa adam ki im lefiyim ma'asav shel akshav. This is a concept that was brought down in Gemara Rosh Hashanah on 16b, that when God judges us, the judgment is always based on where we're standing at the moment. So one can do tshuva at the moment. Doesn't matter what they lived in their life, whether they were all good, all those years, all those days were full of mitzvahs. If right now we're not doing mitzvahs, we judge accordingly. If all of our life was full of bad things and bad actions and bad thoughts, and at the moment of tshuva, will be judged positively at that moment. So just keep that in mind. There's never yeyush. Yeyush ba'olam means you never give up. Right? There's always hope. Okay? And then there's a little bit of controversial statement here, but I think I figured it out. Davar acher, an alternative explanation of a lie Remember, this is Yaakov speaking. So he says, the Kli Yakar says, Lomar, meaning to say, Harehem mit yachasim elai, that they should relate to me as they are related to me. That's why they should come to me. Ki mishpachat ha'av ikar, because the father's family is the ikar, the prime part of the when it comes to family. Because there's a Gemara in Yevamos that is talking about ervos achos aviv in terms of yibum, and how do we know this only applies to the father's side? Because the Gemara says only paternal relations are called family. Mishpachas ha'em ein akroya mishpacha, whereas the female side, the mother's side, is not called. It doesn't have the category of family. And look, in terms of just our own Jewish tradition, we understand that the mother is the real, the nurturing one, the one who really educates the child in the home from a very young age, and that's why we determine Jewishness based. It's not the only reason, but one of the reasons we determine Jewishness based on the mother. The mother has the strongest kesher, even from the time that the uber, the fetus, is in the womb and is learning Torah in the mother's womb. Rechem, that's like the ikar of chinuch, of the time of instruction from your youth. And in terms of tribal familial relations, that comes from the father. And I think that's what it means here. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit further. This is verse 14. We turn to 48:14, and now we're talking about something that is discussed quite often. This is the idea that when Yaakov blessed the children, Ephraim and Menashe, he crossed his hands. Okay, we're going to discuss where Menashe was standing versus where Ephraim was standing. And it seems like Ephraim was standing on the left and Menashe was standing on the right. Menashe was the elder, and the Bachor, the firstborn. Yet, and that's why he was standing on the right of Yaakov, like in front of his right side, right hand. Yet, when Yaakov blessed them, he crossed his hands. The word cross doesn't appear here, but we'll discuss what that is and how it came about, and some very interesting ideas. Bezrat Hashem. So the verse says, I'll read it first in English. This is 14. But Israel extended his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger, and his left hand on Menashe's head. He moved his hands with intelligence, for Menashe was the firstborn. Okay. So, Hebrew. V'yishlach Yisrael es yamino v'yaset al rosh Ephraim v'hu hatzair v'et smolo al rosh Menashe sichas yadav ki Menashe habachor. And then it says he blesses Yosef. Fine. So now, lama shatach Yosef ar acher sheberach otam. So you only find out a few verses later, if you turn to 17, verse 17, I'll read in English. Yosef saw that his father was placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, and it displeased him. So he supported his father's hand to remove it from upon Ephraim's head to Menashe's head. 18. And Yosef said to his father, no, not so, father, for this is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head. 19. But his father refused, saying, I know him, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. However, his younger brother shall become greater than he, and his offspring's fame will fill the nations. So he blessed them that day. So what did he do? He really blessed them together at the same time. And verse 20 goes on, By you shall Israel bless, saying, May God make you like Ephraim and like Menashe. And he put Ephraim before Menashe. But in between, we skipped because we went from 14 to 17. He's also blessing him. I'll read 15. He blessed Yosef and said, O God, before whom my forefathers Abraham and Isaac walked, God who shepherds me from my inception until this day, May the angel who redeems me from all evil bless the lads, and may my name be declared upon them, and the names of my forefathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they reproduce abundantly like fish within the land. So we see there was a blessing before Yosef mentions that the hands are placed illogically. The hands are not placed properly. So I'll read again. Yesh makshim. There's some that question. There's a difficulty here. Lama shatat Yosef ad achar sheberach otam. Why did Yosef remain quiet only until after they were already blessed? Va'achar kach, and then afterwards we saw in verse 17 it says, V'yitmoch yad aviv lahasir otam mi'al rosh Ephraim. Okay, we said that 17 says, right, that Yosef saw his father was placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, and it displeased him. So he supported his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Menashe's head. Why did it take? Why didn't he do it right away? Why didn't he not, as soon as they put the hands on, before the blessing, make this known that it wasn't the proper order? Lama lo so zekodim shebercham. Why did Yosef not do this before the blessing? So this is the Kli Yakar speaking. I'm not sure I understand it totally. Perhaps since it's possible that Yosef thought that the left was more important than the right. Now it could be, I don't know, maybe in Kabbalah, in the Sfirot, Yosef's on the left. I don't know. To look into this, but why would Yosef have thought that the left was more important than the right? And what does this have to do with Yosef? Anyway, because of the hands. He saw the hands were switched, and perhaps that's why he thought it was correct. But then, what made him think that it wasn't correct? Lefi shahalev. So what are we talking about? Why would the left be more important than the right, according to Yosef, according to the Kli Yakar? Because the lev is the makor haseichel munach betzad small. Because the heart, I always imagine the heart being in the middle, but let's say it's a little bit to the left of the chest. So if it's a little bit to the left of the chest, then that's the seat of the seichel, the seat of the spirit. The kabed and the liver is the makor nefesh, and mitave shabiyamin. There's let's say a physical, the lower soul. We have 5 levels of our soul, and the nefesh is the lowest. That's like in the blood, and it goes through the liver, and that's on the right. So maybe he thought that since the seichel's on the left and the physical is on the right, shechashav Yosef, therefore Yosef must have thought lefish Menashe bachor, since Menashe was the firstborn, al kein roitze levarach brachos sichliot, that he wanted to give Menashe the blessings of the spirit, meaning to put on the right, on the left side, by the heart. Litain lo hamoda chachma b'yesher sa'ed, to hand over to him, to allow him to bless him with knowledge and wisdom, which has a very high value. That Ephraim, and he wanted to bless Ephraim. Brachos gashmiut. He wanted to bless him with what was said was on the right side, which was the liver, which is more physical, all the physical material wealth and blessings. But then Yosef noticed that Yaakov was blessing them both at the same time simultaneously. Ozro Yosef shalozo haderech. Then Yosef saw, perceived, he understood this was not the way. That his father was not intending as he had thought. And he thought maybe his father made a mistake. And right, because if he thought one way he was going to give one the first blessing and then the second blessing, that would all make sense to him. But if he's giving them the same blessing at the same time simultaneously, perhaps he thought his father was making a mistake then between the firstborn and the not firstborn. Or lo yoda ben yaminu small, or perhaps he didn't know the difference between the right and the left. Al kain Therefore, the verse states in 17, V'yera be'einav, that the way Yosef saw it, it was not good in his eyes. V'yomer lo kain aviv. And he told his father this is not the right way. I'm just reading the words of the Kli Yakar. I'm not saying I understand them. V'yesh makshi. And there's some that asked, V'chi lo rosh aviv sicheles yada b'kavana. So some are asking, what, Yosef didn't understand that his father was moving his hands with intelligence, meaning it was b'kavana, with intent, but he was switching his hands? He didn't see that? I mean, when you cross your hands, it's obvious. First of all, if the order was wrong, it should be the most likely scenario is you switch the two sons. You switch the two lads. You put then Menashe on your right, and you put Ephraim on your left. You don't leave them where they are, Menashe on the right and Ephraim on the left, and switch hands. You switch the lads and you just put your hands straight out. That would have been an appropriate thing to do, but the fact that he crossed his hands, it makes you wonder. Bivadai yodo es asher asa. So certainly he knew exactly what he was doing. It was done with intelligence. Velama yera be'enei Yosef. So why was this displeasing in the eyes of Yosef? This is really a quandary we're in. V'haylo lishoel la'aviv amaze sicha yodav. He should have asked him, Dad, could you explain to me why you're doing this? I mean, with respect, of course. So he should have asked his father why he did what he did with his hands. V'nira she Yosef chashav. So it seems like what Yosef was thinking, Kli Yakar savar, so that Yosef was thinking that Yaakov thought, she Yosef lochacha b'chor b'yad yamin shalo, that Yosef took the firstborn in his right hand, right, in Yosef's right hand, and Ephraim b'smol shalo, and that Ephraim was on his left. So I'm Yosef, and I'm standing in front of Yaakov. So I take from on my right side Menashe, and on my left side Ephraim. That's me. I'm the father. These are my firstborn on my right. But when I'm looking at Yaakov, then Menashe is on his left side. Right? That would be a way to think about it. Vaz habachor keneged hasmol shel Yaakov. So then what ends up happening is Menashe would be on the left of Yaakov. Al kain sicho yodav kadeshi abachor biyamin Yaakov. Therefore, he switched his hands, so there would be that the firstborn would be to the right of Yaakov. Not that he switched the positions, but he switched his hands. Therefore, lefikach v'yeh be'einav. Therefore, that's what was displeasing in the eyes of Yosef. Why? Sharei be'emet lochach Yosef es Ephraim biyamino. Because this is really, according to the way the Kli Yakar explains it, that Yosef wanted the blessings of the Bechor to go to perhaps to his own right, which is Ephraim, which is really the left of Yaakov, if that's how I'm reading it. Shrei be'emet lochach Yosef es Ephraim biyamino. That's Yaakov. That's Yosef's right. Although biyamino, it doesn't say whose. Maybe Yosef took him to Yaakov's right, which places him in the order that we discussed all along. So the problem with, well, it's not a problem, but I have a whole lot of ideas behind it that I wanted to share. First of all, why were these two children, they're grandchildren by the way, they're not the sons of Yaakov, right? They are the sons of Yosef. Why were they given blessings privately, whereas the other sons were all given blessings publicly? So that's like one question we have to deal with. Also, Yaakov makes them elevated to the status of tribes themselves. He says, you're going to be just like Reuben and Shimon, and that's it. Anybody else that Yosef has born from him, they're not going to have that status, but you guys are just like tribes. So that's how you have 12 tribes. Okay? All of the sons are blessed according to age. We see them all according to age are blessed, but in this case, now even though the bracha was done simultaneously with both hands, Ephraim's name is mentioned first, right? You should be blessed like Ephraim and Menashe, Yirech Hashem, right? Ephraim's name is first. So this is an oddball here. Like on Shabbos, we bless our children. Why? We don't bless them like any of the other tribes. In fact, we bless them like the four mothers, right? The girls we bless like the four mothers, right? But when it comes to the men, we bless them only like Ephraim and Menashe, as opposed to Yehuda or Levi or Shimon, Reuven. It's these two. It's your grandchildren. And yes, they were elevated to be tribes. Why are we blessing them? Why are we blessing our sons like these two? Also, everyone seems to say that Yaakov should have just switched the positions, right? So there's a question, why did he leave them exactly like that? So first of all, there's an idea that there's a hand and a foot involved. What do I mean? That the feet were standing in a certain place. So yes, Menashe could have been to the right on Yaakov's right, yet he took his left hand and blessed him. And Ephraim was on Yaakov's left and he took his right hand. So the feet were standing in a certain place. So you have to realize that the hand represents something spiritual. It's high up and it's used. Physical is the feet are very physical, meaning that they're standing in the earth. They're grounded, well grounded physically. Whereas the hand can reach up high above the head and is representing the spiritual world. Also in the encampment, when they move forward, when the 12 tribes move forward in the desert, so Ephraim is in front of Menashe. Also in the census, when the poll is taken, how many people in each tribe, Ephraim always comes before Menashe. So it seems like what Yaakov wanted to do was to bless Ephraim with, how we go this again? Even though he's standing in the left, that Ephraim is more physical, let's say, if that's straight, if that's the way we're doing it. But the right hand is on Ephraim's head. Yet Ephraim's in the left. So let's just before I go deeper into that aspect, I have a few more questions not even questions, just to answer up some of them. Why were they blessed first, as opposed to the other 10? First of all, they didn't fight, right? You had the 10 brothers who sold Binyamin didn't, but you had the brothers who sold Yosef into slavery, and there was quarreling and bickering. But by these two children, Menashe and Ephraim, there was no fighting. So there was a certain blessing that can come, especially through them. Also, because they were the grandchildren. Grandchildren are like the future. So he was blessing the future through them. Also, because they were born in Chutz La'aretz, meaning outside the land of Israel, whereas the other ones, they were also born in the north, but they lived in Eretz Yisrael, and these were born in Chutz La'aretz and lived their whole life in Chutz La'aretz, and this was a way of strengthening the Jewish people through the exile. Why at the same time and not each separately? So really, I mentioned this earlier, you see that he was blessing Yosef. Yosef was he wasn't the firstborn, but as if he was the firstborn, because he got, what does the firstborn get? A double blessing. So it's as if through blessing them, he was blessing Yosef through double blessing. Now another idea, why switching the hands? So you have to imagine now for a second. He says Ephraim first, then Menashe. And he takes the right hand and he puts that onto Ephraim. So in Kabbalah, they have 3 specific months that represent these 3. I mentioned 2 of them, but really it's 3. You have Ephraim is Tishrei. Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah, right? Yom Kippur and Sukkot. That happens to be the time that the first temple was inaugurated. Then you have, I'm going to skip a month, because we'll talk about Cheshvan. Cheshvan is the next month. That's Menashe. Each month represents a different tribe. So you have Tishrei is Ephraim. The following month, Cheshvan, is Menashe, which is the Akrav, by the way. Akrav is a Scorpio. And Ephraim is the Moznaim, is the scales. That month of Tishrei deals with judgment. Cheshvan is Menashe, deals with the scorpion. And Kislev is Binyamin. So these are all Rachel's children, meaning Yosef is represented by Menashe and Ephraim, and Binyamin. Now, Kislev is when the second temple was reinaugurated. So you have Tishrei first, that's the order. Tishrei, then you have Cheshvan. So Ephraim comes before Cheshvan, before Menashe, in the order. But Menashe represents the third temple, which is the last, which is the final temple. So you had the first temple, that's Tishrei. You had the second temple, which was the third of these 3 months, which is Kislev. And then you have Menashe and Cheshvan representing, because that's when the third temple will be established in the month of Cheshvan. And how do we know that? The Akrav is spelled Ayin Kuf Resh Bet. So it's like an acronym, it's like a statement saying Ikar Bet, Ikar Bayit. That the Ikar Bayit, that the prime house will be in the month of Scorpio, in the month of the Scorpion, which is the month of Cheshvan, which is Menashe. So that's the last. So even though he's the firstborn of the two, there's a special blessing knowing that he would be somehow responsible. His force, his spiritual force, is responsible for the third temple. Any questions?